coils of hoses, a thicker gray hose and a thin white hose. Let's start with the thin white hose, which will feed the tap water into your machine through the stainless steel inlet port. And it's a very simple fitting. You just push the white end of the hose firmly into that fitting until it's nice and snug. You can tell it's snug by pulling it out. Give it a little in and out action to make sure that it's nice and tight in there.
I'd like to point out a few differences on the bottom of your new Melody from the older versions in the original video. First, I refer to the tap water inlet port as stainless steel. The old models were that way. The new models, the tap water inlet port is actually plastic. The method of connection remains the same. It's simply a push-in fitting. So you push the white hose in, give it a tug to make sure it's seated properly, and it's that easy. The second difference, and very importantly, is we've included a new valve adjustment on the bottom of the machine. It's important that this valve is open. If it's closed, your machine will not process water at all, as it won't allow the water in. To ensure that it's open, we want to turn the valve fully counterclockwise until it stops, making sure that it's open all the way. If it's open only part way, that could affect the performance of your machine as well.
Now we'll begin with the acid hose by removing the black rubber cap that comes on the machine. In your diverter bag, you've got two little clamps, and we'll use one of these to put over the end of your gray hose. Do that before you try to attach this piece. It's very hard afterwards to get it on. And then that simply fits over the end of the white plastic acid port. And push that all the way to the end so it's nice and tight. And then use the clamp by depressing or pinching the two ears, and you may need to use a pair of pliers to do this. Get it up there at the end until it's seated nice and firm, and that's all there is to it. Sometimes getting the gray hose over the white plastic fitting can be fairly challenging. In that case, you want to just soak the end of the gray hose in some warm water for about 30 seconds, and that'll make it real easy to install. Now let's take your Melody to the sink and hook it up to the water. So now that we're at the sink, the first thing that we'll actually do is install the diverter onto the tap. To do this, you'll need the diverter bag, which came with the unit and looks like this. Let's take a look at what's inside the bag. First you have the diverter, and then a couple of adapter pieces to use on the end of the faucet if the diverter doesn't actually fit onto the end of your faucet. These diverters actually handle virtually all of the possible configurations, but if you find you have a specialized faucet or it doesn't fit for some reason, just go to your local hardware store to get the correct adapter. The bag also has a couple of nails in it, which you'll use if you prefer to do a wall mount, but most likely you won't need those nails. Now we'll remove the aerator from the end of the faucet. Most of the time you can do this just by using your fingers, but if it's really tight, you can use a pair of pliers to loosen it up, and then you can simply unthread it the rest of the way with your fingers. Then we'll take the diverter and actually try to screw it on to the end of the faucet, and in this case you'll see it's not going to work. So we'll take our adapter pieces, decide which one's the right size, screw that in by hand. Again, you don't want to over tighten this or use the pliers. You'll damage the threads on the end of the adapter. So you get it nice and tight, but finger tight's good enough. And then the diverter screws on to the end of the adapter. After you get the installation complete and you run water through the machine, if you find that you have leaks, you can always go back, take the diverter off, put a couple of wraps of white Teflon plumber's tape, which you can get at any good hardware, and that should take care of the problem. And that's it for the diverter. Now that we've installed the diverter, let's locate a good spot for the Melody. You want to find a place that's close enough to the sink that your drinking water spout will easily reach, yet out of the way and conveniently located. Once you find a good spot, you'll want to trim the hoses to the appropriate length, ensuring that you leave enough of the white hose, enough slack in the line so that if you need to turn the machine to replace a filter or perform maintenance, you can do that. Once you have your location and your hoses trimmed, then the next step is to install the white hose to the diverter. The diverter swivels, and the first thing we'll want to do is remove the compression nut at the end of the diverter. The compression nut then goes onto the white hose. The white hose goes into the diverter, and the compression nut gets screwed back on. Make sure the compression nut is nice and tight, and then position your hose in a convenient location so that the diverter lever is facing you. As you'll notice, the gray hose simply needs to lay in the sink, and you can choose whatever length you want that's convenient for you so that you can capture the acid water for its many great uses. So let's plug it in and power it up. Remember, we have a 3-prong outlet, and we'll want to plug it into a 3-prong outlet, ideally a GFI outlet like you see here. Now we'll move to the back of the machine to the on-off switch. Let's power the machine up in the back. When you do so, you'll notice the LCD panel will come on. The first display is the flow control indicator, and that also contains a high temperature warning and a low flow warning. Over here is the filter life indicator, which shows numbers from 0 to 9999. When it reaches 9999, you'll want to order a new filter and replace it. I'd like to take this moment to mention there are 2 alternate installations available with the Melody. The first one is at the sink, but under direct main pressure. If you're real handy with plumbing, you can do that yourself. Otherwise, you'll want to have a plumber help you with that. The second way is it can be installed under the sink, out of sight, where the only thing you have at the sink is a dedicated faucet from which you'll access your drinking water. To do that, you'll want to contact your dealer to get more information. So let's learn how to use the machine now. The first thing you'll want to do is open the flow control valve to about 1/3. And then we'll turn the faucet on to a nice easy flow. Then we'll flip the diverter lever to the on position, which will route water through the machine so that the water is coming out of the spout. And you'll hear a voice indicating what type of water you have selected. To change it to alkaline, you simply depress the alkaline button. You'll hear that alkaline water is selected. Now to move it through the range of alkalinity, depress it again, and again to get to the highest level. If you'd like to select acid water, you simply depress the acidic button, and then you'll hear a tune indicating that acidic water is selected.
Acidic water selected.
You can cycle it through the levels the same by depressing the acid button just like the alkaline button. If you choose not to hear the sound, depress the Melody button. If you want to just simply turn the sound down, you can turn around the machine and use a small screwdriver to adjust the volume with the volume control on the back. You can also select purified water by simply depressing purified once. So let's go back to alkaline water. And now let's turn the machine down by turning off the diverter and shutting the water down. The machine will go into self-cleaning mode indicated by the chime you just heard and the rotating lights on the control panel. It will automatically shut down when the cleaning cycle is done. One of the great advantages of the Melody is that I can still get my alkaline drinking water even when the machine is self-cleaning. I should note that you don't have to close the control valve every time you turn the machine on and off. That can be left in the on position.
A great new feature on the front of the new Melodies is the colored LCD panel. On the old Melodies, when the machine would turn on, it would only backlight in green. The new Melodies backlight in green only if the machine has purified water selected. If you have alkaline water selected, it changes the backlight to an indigo blue color to indicate the pH colors on the pH scale, and red if you select acidic to indicate the acidic numbers on the pH scale. Additionally, on your old Melody, when we turned the machine off, you got rotating lights indicating the cleaning cycle. I'll turn the machine off, and you can now notice that there are no rotating lights. Your machine is still cleaning, we just eliminated the rotating lights.
Well, that's it. It was much easier than what I thought. And here we are, proceeding to you at home. And prost to you, for thank you for coming to my home and installing that machine, and to your health.
Here's to clean and healthy water.
Thank